Hey everybody, we are back with another episode, and today we are going to help you out on how to structure a scene. CJ and I are here to discuss how we structure our scenes, but hopefully you get some tips on when you sit down, pen to paper, or in front of your laptop and you don't know how to start writing. Hopefully this will give you more guidance.
So stick around, we'll be right back.
I'm Killian, and I'm a developmental editor and have over 15 titles published.
And I'm CJ, author, artist, and I eat, sleep, and breathe storytelling. We're critique partners, and we're here to explore and discover the art of story.
From beginning to end.
From inspiration
to hitting publish.
Okay, Killian, so let's start talking about the basic elements that go into a scene that we should start thinking about.
Perfect, yeah. So every scene should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginnings will be, for the beginning of a book, it should be starting with an initial fight scene. That doesn't need to be an actual physical fight, but it's a conflict. It's an external struggle that the readers will see the main character going through. And what's very important here is that you want to start with the main character. You don't want to start with somebody looking, astral projecting and looking down at the main character or a ghost or whatever, and then you go into the main character. Because typically when a reader begins reading a book, they are making a connection with the one character that they're reading.
Right.
So you don't want to lead them astray. We want to root them into the main character, into the scene, show us that external conflict that they're going to, and have the character initiate some sort of an action.
Okay.
Typically what we're doing here is we're going to establish the character's main goal, okay? And then all of that kind of comes together. So we already see that where the character is, we're orienting the reader in the setting, what the character's conflict is, and through that conflict, we're seeing what their goal is.
Right. So it could be a smaller immediate goal, because that gives us as readers something to follow along with. And that kind of hooks us, because when you set a goal up in front of us, kind of want to see what happens if they reach that goal. But that smaller goal should kind of begin hinting at maybe a larger goal or a bigger conflict that's happening inside the character.
That's really good that you say that. That also has to do with the genre that we're writing in, right? So if it's epic fantasy, that smaller external goal can definitely lead to a much bigger goal. And that can even be in dark romance or paranormal romance, urban fantasy, that sort of thing. If you're more cozy, you can still do it that way, but the world is going to be a bit smaller, as in centered around the character and their tiny world, whether it's a coffee shop or an estate that they're trying to save or something of that nature. And there could be something bigger, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay, so in the scene launch, it seems like you're pointing at action, and it doesn't have to be, so you're saying it doesn't have to be some grand fight or some grand war, even though some books open like that, in the middle of a battle and you're following a battle, but it doesn't have to be that. It just has to be some kind of an action that you can follow along with and you can invest in as a reader to keep going.
That's right. And on that note, one of the most important things you want to put here for that hook is to share a bit of the world building that the reader is getting into, the reason why they picked up the book. So if it is a magical land or the book is supposed to be magical, introduce that magic here in the scene. That's the hook. I think a lot of times writers get so invested in the opening hook, that opening sentence, the prose, that they think that's what the hook is. In reality, yes, you want something gripping to pull them into the story, but the real hook is the reason why they picked up the book.
Right. And the world building, while it might be cool, is probably better left to sprinkled exposition, because the actual hook is the action that we're following.
Well, yes, but that bit of world building, depending on what it is, on what the genre is,
Hmm.
the hook is a good place to really make that shine. For example, in Harry Potter,
Hmm.
we're following the story, but that hook is the moment, the very first time we see magic. And that makes you feel as a reader that you picked up the right book, that that's the what you wanted to read.
Okay. But
Okay.
does that happen in the scene launch or does that happen in the middle of the scene when when you start to
That happens as soon as, sorry, the sooner you can bring it in, the
uh-huh.
better.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so when we're starting off our scenes, we're launching it. We want action. Now that action doesn't have to be a crazy fight scene. That just needs to be something that that we as a reader can hook into and follow along with. We want to establish a goal for the reader, which is a shorter term goal that we're immediately reading, which is going to hopefully hook into a larger goal. And we want to orient the reader in the setting via exposition. And depending on your genre, you want to start working your setting in there, which is going to be the world building. And then from the launching of our scene, everything, like you said, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're going to go to the
The
middle,
middle.
the middle, and that's where I know for me, the middle always feels muddy. So, what are
And
some things that keep us reading through the middle of the scene?
and the reason why I could feel muddy too is because if you're writing this external goal in the beginning, sometimes you write the external goal and then you say, okay, that's done. Now what happens next? When in reality, you want to extend that conflict and bring it down to the middle. Okay, you
Okay,
complicate the goal, basically.
complicate the goal.
You increase the tension. And that one conflict scene becomes the plot of this one chapter.
Okay, so we were talking earlier about a very, very well-known story that everybody knows about, which is like Wizard of Oz.
The
Okay.
Wizard of Oz, sure.
Where we're opening up, that movie opens up, you're immediately put into action, and it's not a big fight scene. It's literally Dorothy riding her bike swiftly and running up to her aunt and uncle, saying that the mean neighbor, Mrs. Gulch, is trying to take her dog. So we're opening up with action. There's a conflict, and we're seeing the setting, the stasis, which is the nobody's listening to her. It's a very gray, drab world. And when we get to the middle of the scene, those stakes increase because then Mrs. Gulch, comes to the house and she says, well, now I have the law on my side and we're going to take Toto. And she takes Toto. So now the tension increases. So we have that original conflict. And then we have escalation with Toto actually being taken away.
Right. So just gonna slow down here a little bit.
Mhm.
Sorry. Just going to slow down here a little bit. The goal for Dorothy from the very beginning was to protect her dog, Toto. And something interesting to note here when she comes in the very beginning of the scene and she's riding her bike and she drops it or parks it or whatever, and she runs over to her aunt and uncle and she just starts help, 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 the neighbor, this and that, the other with Toto. And they are just, hey, we don't have time for your nonsense right now. Something's big is happening with the farm, and your struggle right now is not of importance, right? And then she goes over and there's more characters and she's trying and they're trying to tell her that this is also not a big deal and you're the problem here. This entire scene also tells us why she loves her dog
Because the
because
dog
nobody else listens
symbolizes
to her.
the dog listens to her, the dog's happy, the dog's always playing, and everybody else is miserable. Or
Everybody else is miserable, and to her, the most important thing here is her
Mhm.
dog because it's the only thing that depends on her, that she feels cares about her and she cares about the dog,
And the
and
dog's happy.
the dog makes her happy.
Yeah.
So that scene is showing two things. Her internal care, why this is so important to her. Therefore, it is also important to the viewer. And taking these principles into your writing would be important to the reader too. Because if we can't see the importance of the character's conflict, then
Hmm.
we don't care.
Yeah. And that external conflict with Mrs. Gulch and protecting the dog. And then when we see her singing the famous song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow,
Right.
you listen to the words of that song, it's like, it's dreaming of a place that's, that's colorful, that's a rainbow, that's hopeful, that's not drab and miserable and
Yeah.
gray, and then, you think a happy little Toto running up the yellow brick road. And it's like, okay, she dreams of a place where life is more like Toto. So
Right.
we have this overarching goal there. She would love to be somewhere over the rainbow.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then in the scene, in the middle of the scene, Mrs. Gulch comes back and says, raises that tension and says, "I'm going to take Toto away," and she takes Toto. Fun fact: I named my first dog Toto.
Oh, did you?
Did and Toto ran away. Sad story.
Hmm.
But then what happens in that scene as
Yeah.
it continues to escalate? So Toto, she takes Toto.
She takes Toto.
Toto jumps out of the back
So
basket.
here we're complicating the goal,
Hmm.
okay? Because that antagonist, or in Dorothy's immediate mind right there, she's the villain.
Hmm.
Um, that villain succeeds,
Yeah.
and it meets Dorothy's biggest fear right there in chapter one, so to speak. Okay, in that
Hmm.
first scene, she meets her biggest fear. It increases the tension, but then what happens next?
Toto escapes.
Toto escapes. Toto escapes. She goes back to Dorothy, or Dorothy takes Toto, and
Dorothy
then
gets Toto.
she thinks Toto's not safe. On
So
and on boys and listening or caring. Other people in town don't give a shit.
the heat's going up. The heat's going up.
Everything, yeah, the stakes are
He's
high.
raising.
So the only thing she feels she can do to protect her little dog is to run away
Right.
with Toto. But then
And it's also she's running away toward the bigger goal of getting to this better place.
to getting to
She
this bigger
dreams
place,
of.
and this entire time she has her eyes are set.
So this is interesting, Killian, because what happens is right in the middle of that scene, the goal shifted,
Hmm.
but she still has a goal. So she failed at her first goal to protect Toto. Then
Right.
Toto, the tension increases, Toto escapes, and now she has a new goal, which is to run away.
Yeah, and this
But
is
then
that
we have,
character, that character moment where the inciting incident happens, because in the very beginning her goal was not to run away. This happened now,
Mhm.
right? And this is the inciting incident that makes her decide, I can't stay here. We need to leave.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
there's yet another obstacle to her new goal. So now her new goal of running away, she goes to run away and she hits a new obstacle. She meets Professor Marvel,
Yeah.
guy with this thing on his fortune telling.
Some fortune teller, some,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Um, and she meets him. And now
yeah.
another obstacle is placed in front of her because he says, "Okay, I'm going to tell you your fortune." And
Hmm.
he looks into his crystal ball and he sees a woman who he describes, which is Auntie M, and
Hmm.
she's grabbing her heart and she's falling to the bed, essentially telling her that someone that this woman loved very much disappeared and now she falls on the bed and grabs her heart. So now Dorothy's like, "Oh no, I can't leave if Auntie M is going to get sick and die. So now I have to go back home." So now yet another obstacle in her.
Yeah, this is a double conflict here. And it's important to note that not every single story needs to have this double conflict.
It just needs to have conflict.
It just needs to
Like
have,
conflict really does
yeah,
drive.
it does. But this is great. This is great for the Wizard of Oz, because she does love her dog, she also loves Auntie M, and
Mhm.
Auntie M pushed her away initially. She
Yeah,
didn't mean to push her away, but she's taking care of the farm, and whatever, her niece is saying is not as important as what she feels is important.
right.
Um, so
So get thinking of those obstacles to get in front of your character's goal is a way that we can increase the tension and increase the heat to keep a reader engaged in the story.
mhm.
Okay, so now we're gonna come to this, it's a dramatic moment when she finds out, it's like this kind of key moment in the scene where she sees Auntie M dying in the crystal ball.
Now she's weighing her options and saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't run away. I'm gonna have to deal with whatever problems I have with, you know,
Yeah. And something is
what
revealed.
was her name? Oh, Mrs. Gulch.
Mrs. Gulch, yeah.
She's thinking, I'm gonna have to deal with whatever problems I have with Mrs. Gulch and my dog Toto because I do not want my Auntie M to die. So
Yeah.
therefore, I cannot run away like I planned, and I have to go back."
Yeah. And there's usually something revealed in that climactic moment,
Yes.
something that's going to push the story forward. Because that's another thing that these scenes need is like, yes, we need the smaller goals to push us forward, but
Mhm.
we need to push the whole plot forward.
She had a moment of maturity there too. She
Hmm.
realized, okay, I need to weigh out my options here, and I need to be a mature young adult, or
Hmm.
you know, and go back. And then what happens is a tornado comes.
Right. And then we have like a scene resolution
Hmm.
and a hook to the next scene, right? A hook could be a cliffhanger or
That,
it
yeah, that's the
could be a
scene.
cliffhanger. There's also hooks that are more I guess meditative, but they still hook you into wanting to know what happens next.
Yeah, and that's a big hook.
Yeah.
That's a big hook because everything the character was just going through gets taken away by a tornado.
Mhm. Right.
So it's a complete like shift. And
There's
back
a
then,
revelation that
especially,
happens that
yeah,
there is this plate there something entirely new is on the horizon and now I want to know and I'm sticking around to see what is this new world that we just landed in.
that's right. And there's a lot of complications with the tension, with the goal
Mhm.
being complicated, and a lot of twists and turns happen in this initial scene of Wizard of Oz. And
Right.
then later, when we get to the next scene, when she lands in Oz, the whole scene structure, even though you can't tell, it all happens again.
And that's it's like you have this overarching plot and in the scenes there are these tiny little arcs
Right.
that are taking us, we have from point A to, the middle climax and then the end climax. And in between these arcs, we have all these tiny arcs that are taking us from point A to B to C to D to, for the plots in our
Yeah.
book, you know, plots and subplots that we should be making traction on with all of these scenes. One of the biggest problems that I had when I started out is that, info dumping, there's some of the things not to do, info dumping when you're starting the scene, just giving all of the background information. Like nobody wants to read a thesis on the background information. It's just not interesting.
No,
We can reveal all of that stuff via action, a goal, conflict, stakes, so that we can keep people engaged as we tell that story.
yeah.
Right. All right. So I think that that pretty much covers it. Is there anything else that you can think of? Not really, right?
The only advice I can really give you is
Mhm.
to go watch movies and pay attention
Mhm.
to every scene and try to capture the moments in that description of, oh, now it happens again.
Yeah.
When she lands in Oz and she lands in Munchkin Town, right? Now it's a whole different place, but everything is kind of repeating as the structure keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, and pay attention when you're reading, writing, when you're reading,
She'll get
watching
launched
movies.
into a new inciting incident, even though she already had one, to keep going so that she can go home to Auntie M, and that becomes her central goal
Yeah.
while learning different things along the way.
Yep. And it paces us forward in the book. Okay, great. All right. So stick around for our next video. Stick around for the closing video
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
give us a like and a subscribe. I'll check you next time.
Like and subscribe.
Hey guys, if you want to check out some fantasy novels written by the Critique Partners, check out our author links below. If you're interested in developmental editing or other author services like book trailers, check out the Grimm House Pub link. And if you'd rather just hire a ghostwriter and outsource it all, then check out Legacy Publishing. Link in the description. See you next time.